Niger has taken steps to address the threat of a military attack following the coup. Nigeria, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have played a role in supporting the West's efforts to reverse the coup in Niger. ECOWAS, presided over by Nigeria's president, issued an ultimatum to Niger, demanding the reversal of the coup or facing military intervention. It is noteworthy that Nigeria, an African country, was involved in threatening another African country. In response, Niger has decided to impose consequences not only on Nigeria, but also on Europe, aiming to set an example of its capabilities. Niger has recently announced a complete ban on the export of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, commonly known as cooking gas, to all countries, including Nigeria. Additionally, Niger made it clear that if Nigeria and Europe do not leave Niger alone, they will terminate the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline, which is of great importance to Europe. What does this warning mean, and how significant is the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline for Europe? The government of Niger officially declared the immediate suspension of all LPG exports, emphasizing the need to prioritize domestic production to meet the country's own demands. They explained that if there is a surplus, businesses can apply for authorization to resume exports. It is important to note that Niger primarily exports gas to its neighboring country, Nigeria, and the two nations signed a Memorandum of Understanding for Petroleum Product Importation in 2020. In a formal ceremony attended by the respective Ministers of State for Petroleum, Tim Silva representing Nigeria and Fuma Koyado representing the Niger Republic, an agreement was signed. Silva expressed his optimism, stating that this agreement is a significant step forward. Niger has surplus petroleum products that need to be exported, and Nigeria is the ideal market for these products. It was anticipated that this partnership would be mutually beneficial. However, as tensions between Nigeria and Niger escalated, Nigeria's stance began to go against the continuation of LPG supply from Niger. This has created a challenging situation for Nigeria, as it relies heavily on LPG, which is essential for cooking, heating, and fueling vehicles. Notably, the price of LPG in Nigeria has surged to an unprecedented level of 1,000 Nigerian naira per kilogram, up from its previous price of 750 naira. The Nigerian Association of LPG Marketers had previously warned of potential price increases due to fluctuations in foreign exchange rates and international market activities. In response, Niger has made plans to utilize its surplus LPG for various activities within the country. This decision has been welcomed by the people of Niger. Additionally, the governor of Niger State, Mohamed Bago, has taken steps to address transportation difficulties and the removal of fuel subsidies. It has procured 200 compressed natural gas-powered buses to alleviate transportation challenges for residents within the state. Furthermore, the state government intends to sign a Memorandum of Understanding with a rice processing plant in Kano to directly purchase locally produced paddy rice from Niger State. These initiatives aim to enhance self-sufficiency, support local industries, and promote economic development within Niger State. The governor of Niger State highlighted the state's focus on infrastructure development, emphasizing that contracts have been awarded for the construction of a 566 kilometers road network spanning the entire state. However, the reason for special attention to prevent Nigeria from accessing Niger's LPG lies in the Nigerian president's role in encouraging ECOWAS to intervene in Niger's internal affairs and potentially carry out a military intervention. The Nigerian president has sought permission from Nigeria's parliament to invade Niger, which has caused alarm in Niger. Cutting off LPG exports to Nigeria is just the beginning of Niger's response. ECOWAS leaders imposed trade and financial sanctions, giving the coup leaders a one-week ultimatum to reinstate Niger's democratically elected president or face the potential use of force. The ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace, and security stress that the military option is the last resort, but preparations must be made. A team led by former Nigerian leader Abdul Salami Abubakar from ECOWAS engaged in talks in Niger. Nigeria, currently holding the chairmanship of ECOWAS, representing West Africa's military and economic powerhouse, has pledged to take a firm stance against the increasing incidence of coups in the region since 2020. Nigeria's power company, Niger, confirmed that it had cut off electricity supply to Niger as a result of the sanctions. Niger, one of the world's poorest countries, relies on Nigeria for 70% of its power supply. Neighboring countries under junta rule, Mali and Burkina Faso, have warned that any military intervention in Niger would be considered a declaration of war against them. Russia called for urgent national dialogue in Niger and cautioned against the threats of intervention, as it would not help the situation. The World Bank has announced the suspension of aid to Niger, excluding private sector partnerships. Furthermore, Russia issued a warning, stating that any military intervention in Nigeria would lead to a prolonged confrontation. In response to the escalating situation, ECOWAS revealed its plans to assemble a standby force. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, any military intervention in Niger would lead to destabilization across the Sahel region. Meanwhile, the United States, which supported efforts to reinstate the deposed leader Mohamed Bazoum, claimed that the Wagner mercenary group was taking advantage of the instability. Supporters of the coup, some of whom were waving Russian flags, staged protests near a French military base close to the capital city. They chanted slogans against France and ECOWAS. The regional bloc, ECOWAS, emphasized its openness to finding a diplomatic solution to the crisis. Nigeria's President, Bola Tinubu, stated that all options were on the table, including the use of force as a last resort. While the United States did not explicitly endorse military action, it called on the junta to step aside and allow the restoration of the country's democratic constitution. However, the goal of teaching Nigeria a lesson was not the only motive. Since France and Europe seemed to support ECOWAS' military intervention in Niger, it was decided that Europe should also be taught a lesson. Niger issued a clear warning that if Europe intervened in Niger's internal matters in any way, Niger would terminate the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline. This pipeline, also known as the Niger Pipeline and Trans-African Gas Pipeline, was conceived in the 1970s to diversify Europe's energy suppliers and enhance its energy security, as it heavily relied on Russia for natural gas. The pipeline's objective was to provide Europe with an alternative source of gas. In January 2002, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and Algeria's Sonatrach signed a memorandum of understanding to lay the foundation for the project. Feasibility studies were conducted, confirming the pipeline's technical and economic viability. The pipeline is projected to have an annual capacity of up to 30 billion cubic meters of natural gas and is expected to be operational by 2015. The estimated investment for the pipeline is around $1 billion, with an additional $3 billion for gas gathering centers. The partnership for the construction and operation of the pipeline involves the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Algeria's Sonatrach, and the Republic of Niger. Initially, NNPC and Sonatrach were set to jointly hold 90% of the shares, while Niger retained the remaining 10%. The Algerian and Nigerian energy ministers have emphasized that potential partners must offer more than just financial support to be involved in the project. In June 2022, energy ministers from Algeria, Niger, and Nigeria revitalized the long-standing project, which aims to construct a gas pipeline across the Sahara Desert. This ambitious initiative, known as the Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline, seeks to connect Nigeria's extensive Wari hydrocarbon fields with Algeria's Hassi Omel feeder hub along the Mediterranean coast. If successful, this project will create significant business opportunities in design and construction, requiring the involvement of specialized suppliers. American suppliers, in particular, are eager to benefit from this mega project. Opportunities range from management services and gas compression stations to pipeline sections, welding, pumps, valves, and advanced maintenance technologies. Overall, the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline holds the potential to unlock substantial economic benefits and strengthen energy connections between Africa and Europe. It is important to understand that if Niger feels cornered, it may activate its security pact with Mali and Burkina Faso to extricate itself from the situation. In such a scenario, the first step Niger would take is to ensure the collapse of the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline. This underscores that the pipeline is more than a mere need for Europe. It is a necessity. Europe is actively pursuing dependable alternative energy sources, especially natural gas, as its energy relations with Russia deteriorate. The Trans-Saharan gas pipeline holds the promise of addressing Europe's energy poverty. Once completed, the $13 billion pipeline could potentially transport up to 30 billion cubic meters of gas annually from Nigeria, passing through Niger and Algeria, and ultimately reaching Europe via the undersea Trans-Mediterranean pipeline or through liquefied natural gas tankers for export. However, many energy experts doubt that African gas will flow into Europe in the near future, with some asserting that the pipeline may not be constructed within the next 10 years. However, Europe will bear the heaviest losses in this situation. In 2021, a significant share of Europe's energy, roughly 1/3, came from natural gas. This dependence on gas extended across various sectors, including power generation, transportation, and heating. In 2021, 76% of Europe's energy production relied on the combustion of fossil fuels, with gas accounting for 34%, oil for 31%, and coal for 11%. The remaining energy mix included renewable sources, 14%, such as hydro, solar, wind, and biofuels, with nuclear power accounting for 10%. Europe's quest for alternative energy sources has gained momentum due to supply constraints imposed by Russia on gas. This highlights the importance of the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline for Europe. It's worth noting that Europe is the world's largest importer of natural gas. In 2021, Russia, Germany, the UK, Italy, and France collectively consumed 34% of the continent's total energy supply, equivalent to 10,073 terawatt-hours generated from gas. The surge in energy prices triggered by Russia's conflict in Ukraine has led several European Union countries to unveil emergency measures involving substantial financial commitments. For example, Germany introduced a $65 billion plan to aid individuals and businesses in coping with escalating energy costs. Italy's government approved a $17 billion aid package to shield businesses and households from rising energy expenses and consumer prices. French President Emmanuel Macron emphasized the need for the EU to intensify efforts in developing renewable energy resources and reforming the electricity market. Now, the European Union urgently needs a comprehensive solution to address the challenges within its energy system. The Trans-Saharan gas pipeline could be a vital part of that solution. However, due to France's interference in other countries, things have taken a wrong turn. It's important to note that Niger has only issued a warning about ending gas exports, which means Europe and France still have time to distance themselves from the Niger coup matter. Niger has already banned the export of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, to Nigeria, indicating its seriousness about following through with its statements. This is not a bluff, because if it were, Niger would not end LPG exports, which contribute significantly to its revenues. The question remains, should Niger allow the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline to pass through?